Hey girl, are your healthy habits all over the place or non-existent? Do you wish you could find true food freedom, move your body for joy, and really just talk a little nicer to yourself? If you have tried to habit hack your health, but the strategies you've tried just haven't worked for you in your busy lifestyle, then this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm Emily Nichols, habit and fitness coach, behavior change specialist, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. Hey, I'm here to tell you there is an easier way than what we've been taught about our health and our habits. How do I know? Well, because I've transformed my own life through habit hacking, and now my family gets the best of me, and I now help my clients do the same. I'm now going to teach you how to create healthy habits in less time, guilt-free for all seasons of your life. It's not your fault your habits haven't worked, my friend. We just have to do them differently. So, are you ready to feel empowered and transform your habits and life? Then let's do this. You're listening to episode 231 of Habit Hack Your Health. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I am so grateful you are here. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with family and friends. It's Cyber Monday, y'all. Oh golly, I don't know about you, but my inbox has just been exploding with so many discounts and sales and deals and bundles and all these things. I already started shopping for my boys online before Thanksgiving even started. I always set a budget and I make a list in my notes app on my phone. And then as I'm purchasing things for them, I start marking things on sale. And I was buying a couple of things for my kids where I have like reward points at and stuff, because I know I could give that to like my mother-in-law or my mom to give to the boys. And as I started adding it up, it added up so quick. And my boys are 15 and 12. So their purchases get a little bit more expensive. They don't get quite as much at this age. And I feel like talking about your budget and money can really cause a lot of strain in your relationships and can help and make you feel a little emotional at times, or feel like money is a scary topic to talk about. But today, we are going to be talking about creating healthy money habits and creating a healthy money mindset where we think that money is no longer scary. Now, like I said, I know y'all have been getting tons of emails in your inboxes. I just wanted to give you one last reminder that the Black Friday sale on my Healthy Habits Accelerator pod course and the Healthy Habits mentorship is still going on. So you can save 25% off the audio-only version of my signature program, the Healthy Habits Accelerator, until tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 28th. It's 25% off. You don't even have a discount code. It's already applied at checkout for you. This is my signature program to help you habit hack your mindset, movement, and food freedom habits, all through the lens of Atomic Habits for Women. And it's meeting you where you're at. Like, this is Atomic Habits for Women at Work, where I am taking everything in my course, giving you the best tools, but giving it to you in an audio-only version. That way you can take it on the go. You can listen in your own time. You can re-listen, and it's lifetime access as well. So go grab it. It's available in the show notes. Or you can come join my first ever Healthy Habits mentorship. We're doing a holiday edition. This will be the lowest price the mentorship will ever be. Okay, I'm only going to offer it 3 times a year, so 3 times in the new year. In 2024. Gosh, that sounds crazy, 2024. And we're having a focus on holiday habits. So you'll get the accelerator, you'll get it as a digital course and the audio only course. You'll get 3 group calls, Voxer access to the group, and one-on-one help from me there as well, as long as some of additional downloads and my best habit hacking tools. This is the lowest price it will ever be. We'll be able to enroll folks in the mentorship as alumni as well at a very discounted rate. But y'all, if you want to save some money, if you need some help in the new year, let's do it now. You don't have to wait till January 1st. So that's all linked in the show notes. We start the mentorship on December 3rd, which is this Sunday. So you still got time. Let's go. Now, with my programs, I really take the time to think about what's going to be easy for you accessibility wise, but also affordability. And I know there is a lot of money flying out of your checking account right now, because there is for mine. And a lot of times I feel like it just spirals, and I have to really slow down in my spending habits, because I know I'm going to have a conversation with my husband about what we spent on Christmas for the boys and our close family members, and it makes my palms sweat. We set a budget. I really try to stick to it for the kids and really reinforcing to them and to myself the reason is not about the gifts. The reason is the greatest gift of all this time of year, which is Jesus Christ being born, God giving us the biggest gift, which is the gift of his son. But at the same time, I love giving them gifts at Christmas time. Like I love giving gifts to people. It is like a love language of mine, right? To give gifts, not necessarily my love language is words of affirmation. P.S. But I think sometimes in your relationships, right, there's either a spender or a saver. And a lot of times spending can be an actual habit that you have. I used to have a really unhealthy habit of online shopping, especially when I was feeling anxious or comparing myself. And it can be a scary topic to talk about. But just like we talk about with our habits, that's why we use tools like a habit tracker, a time inventory. Sometimes we need to look at the facts, see where our money is coming and going. That way we know where we are and we can evaluate our habits to help us make sure we have a healthy money mindset and we're being fiscally responsible, right? Now, as I was doing research for today's show, I found this statistic that said women make up 83% of purchasing decisions in the household. 83%. Hence why our mind is always spiraling, right? I mean, you got to think about, you got to get to the store. You need to order this shirt for your kid that needs this. Oh, this kid needs, cleats for this sport or whatever. There's a lot going on, and that leads to a lot of clutter, but also can lead to a lot of overspending and then hard conversations on the other side. So today we're going to hear a lot in this episode that you're not alone. That what is personal is oftentimes universal. And I don't want you to have shame around your money mindset and spending because, girl, I have been there myself. It's something that I'm constantly working at because my husband is definitely the saver and I am the spender of the family. And it's hard sometimes to meet in the middle, especially when we have our budgeting meetings, but we have to know where we are and be responsible and create healthy habits around our money. That way it's not so scary. Right? So today I'm talking with certified financial planner and host of the Money Isn't Scary podcast, Meghan Dwyer. So after spending 15 years watching women take a passive role in the management of their money, she is now on a mission to help them stop playing small. Us. Yes, let's go, girl. She's challenging the societal norms around women and money and really empowering women to make money decisions out of a sense of abundance and confidence rather than scarcity and fear. And she's a boy mom as well. She loves running, writing, and definitely go listen to the Money Isn't Scary podcast because you're going to get some great tips around, the add to cart high you get or girl math that is going around. Like, oh my gosh, I feel that so much. But like I said, you're going to hear a lot today that you are not alone and feeling that money isn't scary. If your palms sweat when you talk about money like mine do, then this episode is for you, my friend. Make sure to stick around to the end. I'll have my 3 biggest takeaways for you as always. All right, girl, let's get over our fear and talk about how money isn't scary with Meghan Dwyer. All right, gang, thank you again for tuning in to Habit Hack Your Health. I am here with Meghan Dwyer. We are going to be talking about how money isn't scary, and that is the name of her podcast, the Money Isn't Scary podcast. Meghan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Okay, well, the first question I ask everybody is, what is your favorite habit hack you have going on right now in your life?
Okay, so I am a visual person and I'm just really big on like physical calendars so I can see what's actually going on, like what the month looks like. So I want to know it. I want to have it kind of right in front of me, right? So I have a calendar for work. I have a calendar for like my podcast and like the work that I'm doing there, my interviews. I have a calendar for personal life. We have it on a whiteboard downstairs that the kids love to draw on and erase and draw again. It's awesome. I mean, and I honestly think that like writing it out is super cathartic for me too. So there's something about the act of like putting pen to pencil or pen to paper that makes it just, I don't know. It's really healing for me as I've kind of go through the overwhelm of my everyday.
Yeah, sometimes you have to like physically get it out of you, all the
Yeah.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. I
Yeah.
get that. I love that habit hack. Well, Megan, let's talk about you a little bit more. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, as far as what has led you to what you do today and who you are?
Yeah. So first of all, I am a mom to two little boys. They are 5 and 7. Um, I am a certified financial planner, and I have been in the financial services industry for 18 years now. And about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I started a podcast, as we talked about, called Money Isn't Scary. And I started this podcast during the pandemic when I was honestly struggling. At the time, I had a 3 and a 1 year old. My husband had lost his job, and I was working full time from home, and it was a lot. And what I was doing was I was shopping. I was online shopping to fill this void, to fill the place that, to fill all these feelings that I was feeling at the time. And I didn't know how else to deal with it. Right. So I was buying like shoes. I say this all the time. I was buying shoes, but yet I wasn't going anywhere. I had nowhere to wear them. So it's so funny. I look back and I'm like, why do I have all these things in my closet that still have tags on them? Like things, and I didn't have any place to go. Right. But it was a coping strategy for everything that I was going through. And I realized that if I was going through this, so many other people are too. I'm a firm believer in that, that what's personal is universal. And so I wanted to share that story. And I just wanted to be able to have other women who were in the same boat as me, working moms with little kids, trying to juggle it all. And I wanted them to know that they're not alone, and their thoughts and their behaviors and their beliefs are all normal. But at the same time, let's work through that, right? Because it doesn't feel good. So there's something underneath all the online shopping, and there's more there than a pair of shoes can do for us, right? So that's really kind of where it started, and the podcast is really my journey. It's my journey as a financial planner. And I still screw up, and I say this all the time. I just I silly overdrafted my account this week. I forgot about a check I had written to my school's PTO back in June, and they sat on it for 4 months and finally decided to cash it now. And I didn't think about it. So anyway, I just want people to know that it happens to the best of us, and money is such a overwhelming topic. And I feel like women in particular don't feel like we have the best grasp of it. So I really want to normalize this, start talking about it more, and help women to be able to start to feel more empowered around it.
Okay, I feel so seen, Megan. I
Right?
feel so seen because you're right. Like sometimes something personal to us, we don't realize it is universal. A lot of times, I personally use shopping as like a coping mechanism. And that's a habit I've had to
Totally.
learn over the years that I have and actually like take back control of. Because I'm like, same. I'd be like I just went through my closet recently and I had a girlfriend come over last night and I was giving her a bunch of my old clothes. And she was like, there's some tags on these. And I was like, yeah, I obviously didn't need that. But
Yeah.
in the moment, you're just like, oh, it feels good. It's like the rush of it. So
Oh, and
definitely a habit.
if you can get it on sale too, that's another. I have a whole podcast episode on that I did. It's like this rush of like feeling like we just beat the system, or we just like won a game or something. If it's on sale, we have to have it. I get it. I get it. I'm right there with you.
Or there's this trend online right now. Have you seen it? It's like girl math or
Oh
something.
my God. Yes. I just did a whole episode on that too.
It makes me laugh. It's like the example of like, oh, I'm returning this $50 worth of clothes. So I can buy $100 worth of
Yeah.
clothes because technically it evens out, right? Like that's like, okay,
Yeah.
we could
Yeah.
totally go on so many tangents.
Oh, I have so many thoughts on this, but yes,
Well,
agreed.
today, Megan, we're talking specifically about our habits around money and our mindset as far as like busy working moms around money, and that money just isn't scary. And I feel like it's an icky topic for some listeners. For me, it is. I feel like always in a relationship, like my husband is like in charge of our budget. He's very like money conscious. I'm like, just buy it, just do
Yeah.
this, just do
Yeah.
that. Like doing the budget every month together makes my palms sweat. But I know personally, and just even with my own business, when I am aware of where money is going out, where it's coming in, I feel more in control and I'm so much more intentional. And it can be a lot more empowering long term to be able to invest in the things that I need for my business or invest in things that my kids need. And a lot of this just has to do with our habits around money and being intentional with our mindset around it. And what is fueling all of this, right? So I know you have 5 things that every woman should know about their money. Let's start there. What are the 5 things every woman should know about their money?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this. And before we do though, I just want to mention when you said, when you talk about the budget with your husband once a month and your palms get sweaty and you get probably this pit in your stomach and everything. So many women out there do too. So you're again normalizing this and realizing that you're not alone. And there's a reason for that. We're going to get into that in a minute. But a lot of that stems from shame and this feeling of underlying shame around where our dollars are going. And again, I think intention is such a big piece to that component. So let's get into that a little bit. So the 5 things that I talk about that every woman should know about money. The first thing is we're not taught to like money, right? So culture, think about our culture. Think about how we grew up, first of all, and we'll get into that in just a second, but think about even our culture now. How many memes do we see out there about like women hiding their Amazon boxes from their husbands, right? I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I was just talking to somebody the other day about it. I'm like, why, if we feel like we need to hide where our money goes or what we're spending our dollars on, which I do, I'm not going to lie. I just went to Target this morning and I just grabbed a couple things and threw them right in my closet and like hid them. So I'm like, and my husband doesn't know. And I'm like, why? He doesn't care at the end of the day. But I think it's this kind of like cultured habit that we formed as a result, because our culture tells us that that women are not good with money, right? So we live in a society where it wasn't until the mid 1970s where women were allowed to have bank accounts in their own name. And the reason for that was historically in the patriarchal culture that we grew up in, or in our past, women were seen as too emotional and therefore not rational, right? So they couldn't be trusted with money, which is completely ass backwards in my opinion and messed up to begin with. But that's the thing. We need to be able to stop right there and challenge those beliefs. So many of us don't, because we still live in a culture it's not the same as it was, but we still do. And I say this all the time, like 1974, my mom was an adult then, right? So even though my mom worked and she supported her kids and she did a great job of what she could do within her means, right? She did what she could do. She still, there's these like intergenerational kind of like traumas that we pass along. And so whether she meant to or not, I mean, some of the things that we kind of think and these beliefs that we have, like money doesn't grow on trees and some of these other like scarcity beliefs come from that. And we don't question it, because that's just what we learned growing up, right? And if we lived in a household where we didn't talk about money, like 99.5% of households out there, I would say, that's not a stat, so don't quote me on that. Then it just makes it even worse, right? So we're not allowed. It's almost like we don't feel like we are allowed to question those beliefs. Okay. So we're not taught to like it is really important. And that's what I mean when I say you're not alone, because of course you're not. So many women out there were in the exact same boat. The other things I will say that we need to know are, we need to know our numbers. And what I mean by numbers are just at a very basic level. We need to know our net worth. And that just means our assets and our liabilities, what we own and what we owe. And when we can start to create some kind of very simplified little balance sheet, as I like to call it, like just whether it's in Excel or just on a piece of paper, and you actually know what accounts are out there, it's so incredibly empowering. I think we get so scared of what we don't know. And we, again, because of that shame, we tend to avoid, or we let our spouses handle it or somebody else handle it for us. So avoidance is the worst thing you can do. If you want to have a healthy relationship with money, you've got to lean into that discomfort. Okay. So we need to just basically, and if you don't know it, ask questions, ask people in your family, ask your spouse, it's important to know what accounts you have, whether that's bank accounts, whether that's investment accounts, retirement accounts, what's your house worth, right? What do you own? And then what do you owe? What's, if you own a house and you have a mortgage, what's your mortgage rate? What's the balance outstanding? What do you have for student debt? Do you have an auto loan? Do you have credit card balances? And what are the rates on all of these things? Like, it's so incredibly empowering once you know that. So that's one component to this. The next piece is the income and expense side. We need to just have a very basic level knowledge of what's coming in, and not just salary, because that's going to be gross. We want to know net of taxes, and taxes and other deductions, if you on a paycheck, what you're getting in your pocket on a monthly basis, and what's going out. And that's the scary part. I feel like so many people don't want to look at where their money has been going, because again, there's shame in it. It's like, oh my gosh, I just spent how much getting my nails done, or how much did I just spend for no reason at Target? But I encourage you to do this with no judgment. And that has to be the hardest thing in the world, because as women and moms, I know we are so hard on ourselves and we're so judgmental, but we really have to work on doing this with a little bit of self-compassion. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But once we understand just what those numbers are, and what they really are, what did we spend last month? Okay, that's knowledge and that's power, because then we can work with it from there. Then we can decide what needs to be changed, right? What's kind of the end goal with intention, and how do I get there, right? And it doesn't mean you have to be restrictive. And I always think of like budgets as like diets, right? Because that means you're taking something away. I can't have that, but that's not the case. And I think if we kind of think about it a little bit differently, more as maybe a spending plan with intention, and we put in, and we start to align where we spend our dollars with that intention, with those, our priorities and our values, then it feels better, right? This makes it a little bit easier of a process. So that was a lot, I know, but I'll keep going. Is that okay?
Yes, right. Keep going.
Okay. All right. So the third thing that I will say that every woman needs to know about money is how to access those accounts. So you need to know what you have, but you also need to know how to get to them. And I know so many people who are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I have this Vanguard Roth IRA that's been outstanding. It's been out there for 14 years and I don't know how to get into it. I don't even know what's in it. It's so important to be able to know how to access these accounts, because even if I say this all the time, because I see this in my day job, I see widows, I see divorcees that come to us and they're like, I don't even know what I have, right? And they have allowed their spouse to handle the finances, and that's not going to help you whatsoever. So you need to be able to access those accounts, know what those types of accounts are. And I'm going to go as far as saying, you need to know the different, what the different investment vehicles are, what the different titlings of these accounts are. It's just important to get curious. Okay. And so start to look at your statements, start to look at like what these accounts are and what they could potentially mean for you. Right. So that being said, I mentioned this a little bit before. The next piece that I want to talk about here is it's important for women to know that all spending, in my mind, is emotional. So if what I'm talking about here is like bringing up all kinds of icky feelings for you and making you super uncomfortable, you are not alone. And women, as I had just said before, I feel like women were not trusted with money because we were deemed to be so emotional, and emotional meant bad. Emotional meant not capable or not able to handle the responsibility, right? But I personally think I'm a super emotional person and I'm an empath and highly sensitive, all of that. I personally think emotions are our superpower. And I think women need to start embracing them, right? Because they tell us the things that we need to hear. If we start to get cringy and we start to get like feelings of like, oh my goodness, that makes me uncomfortable, that's a sign that we need to lean into it. So again, I think, as busy, crazy moms running, as I say, like running on this treadmill all day long in reactive mode and in this chaos, right? We don't often have time to slow down and like listen to those feelings, listen to what's coming up for us, maybe how our body's reacting to like an unexpected bill that just came in the mail and you're like, oh my god, what do I do with this, or how am I going to pay this, right? I think it's so important for women to slow down, just take a few minutes, whatever it is. Could be the beginning of the day, could be the end of the day, could be in the shower, in the bathroom, whatever. And then take a few minutes to just slow down and tune in and listen to what your body's telling you and what your emotions are telling you, right? Because all of those things are really important, and it's something that I think we forget to do so often. So we got to make the time, and we need to prioritize that. So I have one more thing, but if you did,
keep going, girl. I'm loving this. I'm loving it.
Okay, perfect. So the last thing that I want to mention here is we need to know how to practice self-compassion. Again, because we are so hard on ourselves, and women get this, like moms get this this internal expectation, I think, that we need to be martyrs and we need to do it all and we need to be everything to everybody, right? And we also think it's selfish to do things like slow down and take 10 minutes to do a quick little meditation or to go for that walk or whatever it is. Take a few minutes for yourself, right? So what I really want to talk about here is practicing or incorporating self-compassion into our everyday. And I had on my show a few months ago, it was earlier in the spring, I had Dr. Kristen Neff on, and she's the pioneer in self-compassion research. She's amazing. So go check out that episode. Go check out her website. She's incredible. And she said through her research that self-compassion has 3 components: mindfulness, kindness, and common humanity. And the first 2 made sense to me, right? Like, we have to slow down. We got to like be mindful of what we're doing and how we're acting. And we need to be kind to not only others, but we need to be kinder to ourselves. But the common humanity piece was huge for me because it made me realize that I'm not alone. And I think that is the key, because women and moms, most importantly, all we want is to be heard. We want to be seen. We want to feel validated, right? We want to know that we matter. And I think those are things that are kind of have been, for me anyway, missing in my life. And it wasn't until I kind of started to work through this journey through the podcast myself that I recognized that realizing that, hey, I'm in it too. I'm right there with you. And even what you said at the beginning, when you said, I feel so seen, like that is so important. I mean, we need that's, I think, in my mind, what really matters. And that's what gets us like going every day.
Gosh, that's so true. And as you were talking, Megan, I got to thinking, I'm sure there's some statistic out there. I'll probably look it up and put it in our intro, about how much spending moms do for their household. I assume it's majority of it, right? Yeah. We're buying groceries. The kids need clothes. Oh, the kids need this for school. Oh, mom, I forgot I needed to do this. Like, my son plays guitar. Oh, mom, I need new guitar strings. Oh, this kiddo grew out of his shoes. Oh, this one has holes in the knees of his favorite camo pants.
Yeah, like, all of it.
I love my husband, but they're not going to him to be like, hey, Dad, I need guitar strings. Yeah. Hey, Dad, I need, what are you getting at the store today? You know what I mean? So we have a lot of that. And I think when you sit down to like go through like a budget, that's where that shame comes up. Because if you're going line by line every item and your husband's like, only thing I did this month was pay the mortgage, all these other ones are like things that you bought, and you almost feel like, and this is just my own personal feeling, you almost feel like you're being like accused, like, well, what did you spend here? Why did you spend this? And you feel
Right.
like
Like you
you
have to
have to
justify.
justify it. Yeah. And that's why I feel like money gets such a bad rap. And my husband, he's not doing it to like accuse me. He's just like, he has a spreadsheet. He's seen all the categories that we're spending. Like, well, what'd you get at Amazon? Oh, it was stuff for the boys. Okay, well, this goes in this category. And I'm just like, well, why do you ask?
Yeah.
I had to get, and I think we get so close to jumping to
Yeah.
conclusions because, like, you're right, it's so emotional. But also, I think it does bring up feelings. I know for us, just working through in our own relationship and our budget for our family, it was like, okay, I am overspending in this area. I am, not looking into like how much I'm spending at the grocery store. I need to like really dial that back a little bit because it's unnecessary. Spending in food was going to waste, for example, because we weren't using it up. And over time, we had to kind of come up with a plan like, okay, well, if I wanted to buy clothes for myself for the month, let's just set a limit for the month, like $100, Emily's, whatever she wants to spend money on. And
Yeah.
that gave me so much more freedom to be like, oh, okay, well, I don't feel bad like buying clothes for myself versus like, oh my gosh, when we broke it down, I spent like $500 or something like that. Then you just crawl into a deep hole of shame. So I've been able to, over time, find such a happy balance, but also realize the habits that lead me to start overspending and
Mhm.
compensating. It's usually like when I'm feeling overwhelmed or low self-confidence. Oh, a new outfit will make me feel better. Or when I get something like for my kids and see joy for them, it makes me feel really great too.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of leaning into, and I'd love to hear what your opinion is and suggestion on habits that we can start implementing when we find ourselves adding to cart. It's so easy just to like hop on your Amazon app, add to cart, and it's there like the next day. Or even the opposite of that too, when we have a scarcity mindset. I feel like you're either one or the other. You're the one spending, or you like, we have to save it all because we have a scarcity mindset. So, what are some habits around if you find yourself overspending that you can help overcome that? But also, what are some habits if you find yourself in a scarcity mindset and you're holding on to everything?
Yeah. So I have a couple of things that come to my mind. In this, you touched on this right here. You said when you got that $100 as sort of your like play money and stuff that you could work with and you didn't feel guilty about it, right? I think budgeting in that fun, right? Allowing yourself, like for me, shopping's fun. I do it as an activity because it de-stresses me. And I love I love kind of the thrill of not knowing what I'm going to find kind of thing. And that's okay. Again, we feel shame about it because it's like, oh, shopping gets such a like bad reputation in our culture, but no, there's something to it. For me, it's de-stressing. And so I think making that essentially a line item on that budget or spending plan or whatever you have, like plan and like use cash. Honestly, cash is great because once it's gone, it's gone. You can't just easily swipe the card and be like, oh, okay, I'll pay this off later. That's something else that I think is really important. But plan to have your fun. I like to go to Target. So I'll just, and I don't care. I don't know what I'm going to buy. It's not like I have a thing necessarily on my list, but you never know you're going to find at Target and it's fun. So as long as I allow myself to have that little bit, I don't feel so restrictive because I don't want this to be like a diet that I'm just going to fall off of and I feel like I can't have things, right? So those two things are important. The other piece that I want to mention here is like start to notice your triggers, right? So like what are the things that make you uncomfortable and start to notice them as they come up, right? And then begin to sort of challenge that underlying belief. So you talked about kind of the tips around like moving through scarcity. Um, I grew up in a household where it was money doesn't grow on trees and we have to wait till your father gets paid in order to get like whatever this little toy that I wanted to get when I was like shopping with my mom or something, right? So I just inherited that money doesn't grow on trees, and I'm kind of similar. I feel like so many marriages are like this where you have financial opposites. One's sparse or the other, is one's more of a saver, one's more of a spender. It's the reverse in my house because I'm the financial planner, so I'm the one always like focused on spending, whereas my husband's like, he'll just call me, and he's so impulsive And he'll just call me and be like, oh, I just booked this hotel room for, like 3 months out, and we're going to go to this whatever football game or something. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what did you spend on this? Right. But I know that we're all in that kind of boat. Like everybody's dealing with something like that as well. So in my mind, it's good to have his balance, because I'm like, oh, well, where's this money going to come from? But it doesn't have to be that way. Right. So if we can begin to sort of like recognize, slow down, notice the triggers when they're coming up, and start to challenge those beliefs, and start to challenge where they came from and what do I actually believe? Is this actually my thought, or is this my mom's thought? Did I get this from my mom or my grandmother or somebody else growing up? I think that's a really important tip. Like just to, and again, in order to do that, we have to slow down, because we're so busy. We can't do these things with kids yelling at us, and demanding and needing things all the time. And we can't do it when, you're driving in the car. Like you need to be intentional about how you look at this. And to that end, the last thing I'll say around kind of like tips and how to handle things is as moms, we are constantly going, and we're constantly, overwhelmed, and there's so much stimuli coming at us. So one of the things that helps me with sort of this, like reframing the conversation around scarcity, is asking myself, how do I want to show up? Right? Like I like in the mornings, I've been starting to do this recently, and it has actually helped me. I'm like, do I want to be that exhausted, overwhelmed, depleted version of myself who feels like backed into a corner because I have to be everything to everyone, and I have to spend my money this way, and I have to, right? Like there's no flexibility. It's so rigid. Is that really what I want? Or do I want something different? Right. And like, then back into it from there. And I really feel like that tends to open us up to way more possibilities than we had even previously been able to see right in front of our face. Right. So being intentional about this, I think, is really important, because we're so often not.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a matter of slowing down. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to like meditate on my spending habits for
Right.
like an
Right.
hour. It's just being aware. And like you mentioned earlier, kind of having the facts, like sit down, as scary as that is. A lot of times when you have the facts in front of you, like this is where our spending's going, this is how much money we have coming in. It's almost like a sigh of relief, like, oh, well, okay, now I know where it is. We're over that.
Yeah.
We're going to incorporate these other habits now as well. And that's just so helpful to have the facts and not just the feelings. Like I'm overspending. You may look at it and be like, oh, well, I'm not doing that bad. I mean, we're doing great. We're doing great. We have more money than I thought we did. We can't afford to do ABC, right?
The scariest thing is the unknown in my mind. And if we avoid it and we don't look at it and give it kind of the attention that it deserves, then the scarier it's going to be. The more that we open up to it, the more that we lean into it, we get curious and we don't judge, right? The easier this is going to be.
Yeah. And it's so much healthier for your relationship with your spouse. I have to say it. It's as much as I hate doing our monthly budget, like it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
After we got through that hump of figuring out what is a healthy balance for him and the way he feels about money, and me and the way I feel about money, and meeting in the middle, because this is a partnership, a relationship, and we want to support our family in so many different ways. When this episode drops, we're in the midst of the holiday shopping season. Like I think it's actually like Cyber Monday today. So everyone's like, add to cart, get this, get that. Your kids are sending their Christmas list. You're getting something for Aunt Sally and grandma and, your dog and everyone. And spending can get out of control. And it almost feels like a high, like shopping and getting all these presents for people. And it feels so good to give all of these gifts. But then if you're paying it off later, or if you're paying it as you go and look at the end of the year, at the end of the December, you're like, oh shoot, like we have no money left to pay like the mortgage, and we got to, transfer from savings or whatever. And that feels icky. What would be your number one tip to help our listeners during this holiday shopping season when it comes to money?
Be intentional. So let's plan ahead a little bit, right? I would say it's right now when we're recording this, it's not right. It's not end of November. We're not in that holiday season. So it's a good time when you have, before you start this process, to take a few minutes and set an amount that you want to spend, right? And then kind of back into how you're going to allot those gifts from there. Okay. So like personally, my kids have so many freaking toys, and they're just going to get sick of them, or they're going to break them or whatever in a few weeks. Right. And so what I'm starting to look at is, what do they really want? Right. Like they each have sort of one like big thing that they really want. Right. So I want to prioritize a few things on that list, and that's it. Right. And then I'm telling my family the same thing. I like, my mom and my mother-in-law and stuff, like, they're like, what do the kids want for Christmas? And I'm like, just don't buy them a bunch of stuff. Like, they don't need a bunch of stuff. We have so many things in our house. Right. So skip the toy, right? Maybe just make a contribution to their 529 plan. Financial planner over here, always thinking ahead, right? But that's going to be more advantageous for them in the long run. And it's just less stuff that keeps accumulating, right? So the other thing I'll add to this is, I'm starting my shopping on the early side, because I've been doing this the last couple of years. I've been doing like little bits and pieces, kind of as time. I mean, of course, the kids change and they're into different things all the time. So, maybe towards the fall, see if like what they're into and stuff, but in your family. But if I can fit in like little bits and pieces of it as I'm like, doing errands or running or doing other shopping trips, as when I'm just out on the weekends doing my normal routine, that helps. It doesn't feel like it's such a burden. It doesn't feel like it's such a big thing. Like and you're kind of spacing out the spending versus like spending like one huge chunk all at once. So I kind of like that, honestly. I feel like it's, sometimes shopping for the holidays can feel so overwhelming and so daunting. And like, I just get overwhelmed by the thought of doing it, right? Like, how many things do I have to think about, and how many things do I have to plan for, and who am I shopping for? Right. So I think just being intentional and starting now, or starting on the earlier side, and thinking through exactly how you want this to go. And that's very similar to what I said before. Like, how do I want to show up this season? How do I want to feel? And boundaries, like, you don't have to do everything just because you're asked to do them, and you don't have to buy for everybody just because maybe they buy something for you. You really need to focus on what are my priorities and what are my values.
Yeah. Like you said, Megan, just being so intentional, and you don't want to be stressed out all holiday season. It's all about spending time with your loved ones. Right. And I can tell you, my boys are older. They're 15 and 11. They don't want as much stuff, but as expensive stuff they want. It's usually like shoes and like electronic stuff. Yeah. And you're right. Like, we have to be super intentional with that. And the boys actually give me ideas all year round. And I keep a notes app just open in my phone of just Christmas ideas for the boys. So I can give it to grandparents. I can make a note of it. And they're very well aware of like setting a budget that we set at the holiday time every year. And it's made it so much easier the past couple of years having that budget in mind. And it's been much more enjoyable shopping for them, and not feeling like, oh, I'm like overspending, because it's so easy. It's not like, some folks still like to go out and do like the big, like day after Thanksgiving, like shopping. I used to do that with my mom and sister. And now I'm like, you couldn't pay me to do that. I want to stay at home in my jammies with my slippers and my coffee, and just add to cart. And I think that can lead to overspending. But if you have a budget in mind, like you said, intentional planning, even sprinkling out some shopping throughout the year, it'll make your holiday season a lot more intentional and enjoyable. Yes.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll add to that too, and this is something that I've been doing, is you can even like start at the beginning of the year. You can so easily set up automatic transfers into a savings account, and you can name it holiday shopping. Yeah. And you can just $20 a week. I mean, I feel like it's just a throwing spaghetti at a wall number, but like, that's a number that I feel like we wouldn't really miss too much. Right. And it's big enough that it's going to accumulate. If you put it into a high yield savings account, interest rates are so high now that it's like, that's going to add up. So if you do $20 a week, by the time 45, 50 weeks come in, you've got a chunk of money there, right? And you've probably forgotten about it and or not missed it, right? So that's just something else that I think is another tool that we could implement to reduce the overwhelm, I think, during this season.
Yeah, I love that tip. It's kind of like when you meal prep, and then when you have like the meal you prepped, every time I do, I'm like, oh, thank you, Emily from the past. You saved me right now. And it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the same thing. And having
Yes.
it automatic, you don't have to think about it, which I
No.
love even more. That's such a great tip. I think I'm going to
Yeah.
start doing that now that you said that. So, Megan, thank you so much. This has been so insightful. And I hope everyone feels a little less scared about talking about money and a lot more empowered now after this conversation. Where can everyone connect with you and find out more?
Yeah, so you could listen to the podcast, Money Isn't Scary, anywhere you get podcasts. It's on Apple, Google, Spotify, all of that. My website is moneyisantscary.com. And I'm actually doing this fall and into winter, I'm going to be working on some online like lunch and learn workshops as well. So you can check those out as well. And social media, I'm on Instagram at Money Isn't Scary and Facebook also at Money Isn't Scary.
Super. All right. We'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. So, Megan, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great.
Megan, thank you so much for this conversation. Friends, do you feel a little less fearful about money? Are we coming at this with a money mindset of abundance and confidence? I hope so. I know I feel more empowered after listening back to this conversation that I had with Megan. So let's talk about our three biggest takeaways. This is the cliff notes, if you will, of our conversation. So number one, know your numbers. So like the data, right? You hear me say a lot of times, sometimes we need the facts, not feelings. Like that's why we use a habit tracker. Or I've heard another one, data over drama, the other day. Sometimes you just need to know where you're coming from. And that's very empowering, right? If you don't know, you might be overspending or you might be, right where you need to be with your budget. It's very empowering to know all of your accounts, how to access them, and have a say because you do 83% of the household spending, right? So know where your money is going and have the data. That way you can lose the shame sometimes that we have when it comes to money and spending. Number two, I loved what Megan said about your money, your budget doesn't have to be restrictive, just like a diet, right? Oh, I love that. I'm not for a restrictive diet, but I am for finding that middle ground where you're creating healthy habits around spending. And I love, setting a budget for yourself to be able to spend fun purchases throughout the month. That way you aren't feeling so restrictive. Because what happens when you restrict like sugar and like foods that you really love at the max and like have zero, right? Like over time, you're just going to go face first into like a carton of ice cream. Like that's the way it goes. You restrict for so long that you go all the way the other way. It's the same thing with spending, right? If you're being so strict and that you don't, spend anything at all for yourself, you might find yourself like adding to cart and getting it, the next day from Amazon. Now, I do want to point out, I know everything is like extra expensive right now as well. And I know our family, I'm really taking a look at what I'm spending on groceries right now and being a little bit more mindful about what I am purchasing. And that really goes back to looking at our budget each month and seeing that, hey, I'm maybe getting kind of like the same amount of groceries, but they're costing a little bit more, and thinking about what I already have like stocked in my freezer. That way we're able to budget accordingly moving forward. But friend, I also know that it's really hard right now. Maybe you might need to really restrict right now in regards to setting a stricter budget. I understand that, but find ways where you are still able to take care of yourself. Maybe it's buying like a Starbucks just one time this month to treat yourself. I always like to, like right before I start my period, that might be TMI, but that's when I try to only get one Starbucks a month, because it adds up. And I like a bougie drink from Starbucks, and it used to be like $5. Now it's like $7. Like, what in the world? So I want to be mindful of that. I know everything's a lot more expensive right now, but knowledge is power and can help you adapt and find that middle ground. And lastly, just like we create habits around our health, we have habits around spending, and there might be some emotional triggers leading you to spend. I know for me, it's always like when I am feeling like shameful about myself, or when my husband's out of town for work, that is when I have found it triggers me to like spend. And I love fashion. I love clothes. I also am a fitness instructor by trade. So most of the days I am in leggings, right? And I'll buy things that aren't necessary. So all spending in a way has some type of emotion tied to it. We don't want it to have shame or guilt though. So empower yourself by knowing your numbers. Find that middle ground and evaluate your triggers, which are causing you to spend. And just like certain foods, sometimes we ask ourselves, is this worth it to you? If the answer is heck yes, then go for it. If it's like, yeah, I don't know, then my friend, thank goodness for 24, 48 hour like return policies or whatever it is. So friend, I hope you feel seen today. Like I said, I know things are so much more expensive now. You might have to budget a little bit more, but know your numbers. That way money isn't so scary and you can feel empowered with your spending habits and know that you are more in control than you think you are when it comes to your spending. And sometimes we just need the facts over the feelings. So Meghan, thank you so much again for this conversation. I personally don't like talking about money, but this is why we're stepping outside of our comfort zone and talking about this today, especially during Cyber Monday. Friend, if you feel inclined to invest in yourself in either the Healthy Habits Accelerator pod course, make sure to get it before tomorrow. It's 25% off. I made that super affordable all year round though, so because I'm trying to meet you where you are, or grab the mentorship at the lowest price ever. Everything is linked in the show notes. We're going to continue talking about gratitude and having an attitude of gratitude and some actual habit loops to create gratitude throughout your day this next Thursday for Habit Hack Thursday. So make sure to come see us and listen then. All right, friend, I love you so much. I'll see you Thursday. Hey girl, real quick before you go, did you know I have a secret podcast where I talk all about why most habit strategies don't work for us women? Spoiler alert, it's not our fault. Visit bit.ly/atomic habits for women. It's linked in the show notes to access my secret podcast series and have your biggest aha moment about why and how women have to do habits differently. And if you love the podcast, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. That way more mamas can find the show. Love and appreciate you, friend. We'll see you next time.